How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. Today, I bring you a former naval officer, current business owner in the manufacturing space, and a renowned leadership author, Jon Rennie. I'm excited to talk to Jon today and for you guys to get to know him. He's got quite a background. And so welcome, Jon. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Jeff. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you too. We're in that weird spot between Christmas and New Year's. So I'm still in the office though. We're still trying to ship product before the end of the year. Same.
It's we're trying to get a little edge headed into the new year and not wait for 2022.
Right.
So we were just having a chat offline about your background, but tell the people listening kind of where you come from. You've written multiple books, right?
Yeah, I've got two best-selling books on leadership, mostly from my experiences in the military, and then how I brought that to the business world, both in corporate and in the entrepreneurial space.
Okay, awesome. And you have quite a background in the corporate world, correct? A couple decades.
Yeah, so I came out of college as a mechanical engineer. I did 5 years as a naval officer in submarines. I was a submarine officer. I spent 5 years at the end of the Cold War making deployments. I made 7 deployments towards the end of as we wrapped up the Cold War. And then, like a lot of guys, I got out, and got that big job offer at a big, global company. And I ended up working for 3 different global companies in 22 years of my career. And during that time, I ran 8 different manufacturing businesses for those corporations. So they sent me around to where there was problems, and I, turned businesses around and all that stuff. And I made a lot of money for those big companies. And so 6 years ago, I decided to unplug from corporate life and start my own business and do it for myself and for my team. And a lot of my employees all of my employees came from big companies, and they just decided to kind of unplug from the matrix and, kind of do it on their own. So we are, we're a small company, and we compete against very large global businesses. And we're making a name for ourselves, and we're carving out a little niche in our world. So, so I've got the military experience, I've got the corporate experience, and now, of course, the entrepreneurial experience as well.
Did you find that there was a big difference between the corporate, and I could probably answer this for you, but I'd love to hear your answer being the expert, because like I said, I did 18 years in the corporate world as well. So we have a similar background, except I wasn't in manufacturing at all. I came from financial services and insurance. So that would be the biggest difference. But when you came out of that world, tell me and the listeners kind of the biggest difference that you think that you identified from a leadership standpoint between leading in the corporate world and leading in the small to medium-sized business venture that you're in right now.
Yeah, being on a submarine is kind of a unique environment in that we were all kind of locked in a metal tube. There's 155 of us. We would leave for 3 months at a time, and nobody left, nobody came on board. We were sort of in our own little world. So you were interfacing with people, 24/7. When you were a leader, as a junior officer, I was in charge 24/7. There was no taking the day, no going home at the end of the day and kicking your feet up and watching, Netflix, right? So you were a leader all the time, and there was no weekends off. You just did it. You did it 24/7. So when I came to, and the other thing is I got to know the people that worked for me and the people that I worked with and the people I worked for, we had intimate knowledge of each other, right? We knew each other really well. So, contrast that to come to corporate America. I get my first job as a design engineer for this large global company. They put me in a cubicle. It took them a month to get me a computer. They gave me a stapler. I still have that stapler, by the way. And I had nothing to do for 30 days. I didn't even know why they hired me. And so it was almost like, and everything was at a slower pace. Like everybody would say, "Oh, we'll do that tomorrow." Like, "Oh, that'll get done tomorrow." In the military, it was like it had to get done. Everything had to get done now. There was no tomorrow. And so there was a slower pace. There were cubicles. Everyone sort of sat. Nobody moved around. And my boss at the time, hired me, but didn't really told me why he hired me. So it was just a weird experience. Like I went from being really an important part of a military unit to just some guy in a cubicle with a stapler. Right? It was really weird. And eventually, but the experiences I had in the military, which was for us at least, was when you got on board a boat, the most important thing you want to do is get qualified. So add value to that military asset. And so I took that mindset when I got to corporate and said, well, how can I add value? And so since nobody was telling me how to do it, I just figured it out on my own. And I would meet with, guys that have been there a long time and say, well, what do you do? What's this job like? What am I supposed to be doing right now? When you go to the shop floor, take me with you. I want to learn, teach me. So, and I read the standards for our industry, and I became an expert in the engineering standards, the quality standards. And I was trying to add value, trying to be valuable. And eventually that led to me getting put into management positions. And at 32 years old, I was given my first manufacturing plant. So, but that military experience of like, okay, you got to get qualified. You have to add value. We used to say on the boat, if you weren't qualified, you were a nub, which was called a non-useful body, right? You were stealing oxygen and food from others that did add value. So there was a positive peer pressure to get qualified. And when I come to the corporate world, there's just no pressure to do anything. It was just like, don't worry about it. It'll get done. Don't worry about it, And so I sort of took that mindset that I learned in the military and brought it to corporate. And that's how I was able to kind of move up quickly, get operations, and eventually run manufacturing plants, all over the East Coast.
That's brilliant. The fact that you had the stick-to-itiveness to stick with it, because I would say the experience that I had that was different than that, and was that I came out of a special operations unit. We were highly active and operational, and the level that you operated at was extremely high. Then you came into the corporate world, and it ground me down, I guess. And it was because of my personal decisions, as far as like, there was no opportunity to perform, is the way I kind of saw it. You could perform, but you couldn't perform or excel. And even when you did, it didn't really matter. And so it's just an environment of mediocrity. And it truly is. And you're around a bunch of people that like don't give a shit after 4 o'clock. As soon as they head out to the parking lot, like that particular job or whatever they're working on is a complete afterthought to them. And that is not what I was used to. But what I allowed it to do was erode down my discipline and my ability to stay sharp. And I feel like I wasted years falling into that level of complacency that like most people slip into. And it's been me doing a lot of self-discovery and a lot of work on myself to pull myself back out of that. But it all goes back to exactly what we did in the military, which was the discipline of everyday tasks, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you're right. And I think there's an allure with corporate life, right? I mean, you call it, I'll kind of call it security in quotes, because you feel there's a comfort zone, right? Like I'm getting a big paycheck. I get, good bonuses if I hit my numbers, good benefits. I mean, and it's almost like you get lured into the comfort zone. And And I would say this, in my 22 years, I felt like it was soul sucking, like it was taking my soul, and I was just allowing it because, again, I'm putting kids through school. I'm raising a family. I'm paying a mortgage. I'm paying car payments. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep this thing going, right? Because I can't really afford to leave it because I'm getting paid too much and I'm making too much money. And it's like, so there's a complacency there, but I think at the same time, it's stealing your soul, and you're not the same person you were, and you compromise too much over a long period of time. And that's what finally did it for me. I actually left one company and went to go work for another global company. And when I realized that it was exactly the same, it was just a different name over the door. That's when I made my first decision. I said, I'm done with corporate life. I was only in that job for 2 years, and I was like, I'm done. I'm completely done. I can't do it anymore. And so that's when I knew I had to be off on my own and kind of like you rediscover. I mean, it's a challenge, right? When you say I'm going to do this on my own, I don't have I've always had the military and/or big corporations behind me. Now it's just me, and I think that's intimidating. That's hard, and that's way outside your comfort zone. And I can read a P&L statement. I can read a balance sheet. I know how to run a manufacturing business, but I've never done it on my own, where it's like my cash and my, and my money and my resources. And yeah, it's really scary. So, but it's been the best experience of my life the past 6 years. So.
It really is, once you settle into it, because the term soul sucking is a great description of what it does, because what you don't realize when you get into it, into the corporate world, into the 9 to 5, is that you're making daily compromises with your, what is the word I'm looking for? Your purpose. Yeah. Your purpose. Because no one's purpose is to go sit in that cubicle. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not mine. And I think that was the thing that over time just grated on me. And because I came out of the military and I had 6 months to transition back into my job. They guaranteed me a position at the corporation that I was with. And I had 6 months to go back. I was back in that cubicle within a week. I didn't take any time. And so I just moved into the next thing. And for me, over time, that manifested itself into more problems than good things. And, but you're right. The golden handcuffs is what I call them. They give you just enough raises, and just enough incentives, and just enough security to make you feel like this is a pretty good thing. You start having kids, you you have a wife, kids, home, dogs, picket fence, whatever to support. And it seems very risky to take it all to zero. Right. And bet on yourself. But I think it's certainly invigorating. I mean, do you have any regrets? Would you have done anything differently? Like you walked away on your terms, it sounds like.
No, I wouldn't do anything differently. And here's my point. And I talk to a lot of young people coming out of, I talk to a lot of graduate, I go teach leadership at graduate school, various graduate schools. And I talk to young, students coming there, they've gotten their undergraduate, say engineering, and they're going for the MBA. And I get a chance to come in and talk to them. And one of the things I say is like, go work for a corporation, go work for a big company, learn your craft, learn your trade, become really familiar with your market, especially what you're really attracted to. And, corporations are a great place to learn. I mean, I went through so many leadership trainings. I traveled all over the world. I've got to do things that are unimaginable. I mean, for example, I got picked to go to Cambridge University to get a master's degree when I was with one company. And so I went to the UK, spent, 2.5 years working on a master's degree. What a great experience. I traveled all over the world with that degree program. My point is that, these corporations, they do give you really good opportunities to get experience, to get travel, to get education, to get training. But I think at some point you got to leave. You can't stay, because I think it really does you get to the point where it makes it really difficult to stay. Once you're in, your income's at a certain level, your expenses are a certain level, and then you're sort of like locked in, you're stuck. Mm-hmm. And so, but I do encourage the young people to go there and learn from, what's, you're into, whatever you want to be into, cell phones, go work for Apple, figure out what life is like there. Right. And then do it on your own or whatever. I mean, just go to where the best of the best are, learn those skill sets, and then do it on your own, So I think that's something that I think is a good lesson. So I don't regret working in corporation. I got a lot of great experiences, met a lot of great people. And, but again, I think, and I think it's hard as a young entrepreneur to say, well, I'm going to start my own business doing whatever. Well, have you ever done that before? And I think, when I started my business, like I think we were talking offline, is that the manufacturing side, the product development side, that's all easy, right? I've been doing that for years. That was easy.
Right.
So because I've been doing it for years for other people. So I think working in a corporation is not a bad thing. It's just you got to make sure you don't stay. You don't get stuck. Yeah,
that's an excellent perspective because we own a gym that we've owned for like 11 years in Houston. And that was one of the first businesses I started outside of being a real estate investor and buying an apartment complex. But in the gym space, like to your point, I am big on headhunting guys that come out of the big corporate gyms because they spend a lot of money on continuing education. There's all those programs that you're talking about. And I did the same thing. I worked for State Farm and I did all these Series 6 stuff and different financial services education that I had the opportunity to be able to do because I was with a big corporation. And so like, that's really interesting perspective considering like I'm working through all this stuff in my head with my kids. And because I think the world's changing at a really fast rate and who knows what the validity of college and things like that and the path is going to be in 10 years. And so, but yeah, that's an interesting point because I would not have ever led with what you just said, which is like, there's so much validity in going into the corporate world. It's a really great experience. It comes with all these perks and benefits and like your perspective has shifted my mindset on it because you're exactly right. I probably stayed about 8 years too long in the corporate world. And because I did what we're talking about, I took the raises and I got to the point where I'm just like, man, this fucking hurts. Like it's a big gulp in your throat when you're like, oh, I'm giving up a couple $100,000 to take this shot. And so if I was teaching my kids, or I have a really good example about a guy who I do business consulting for, who's got a really great job. He's a Green Beret. He just got out of the service, took a great corporate job, mid 6 figures. They're paying him well. And he already wants out. And so he's kind of looking how to take that leap. And that the point that you make about like, you have to really examine like what your exit strategy is. And I think you have to keep your exit strategy in mind the whole time, even if that's like peeling off 60% of your salary before it ever hits your bank account. The whole time you'll be in a better spot, obviously. But you have to create that space and distance so that you're not reliant on those perks and benefits that they give you.
Yeah, I was never a pilot, but I always, the Navy pilots, I always think of like the similar scenario where you're flying the jet, but you've got a hand ready to punch out at any point in time when, so you're not 100% on the stick all the time. You're also thinking about how am I going to get out of this? Because I think it really is hard to escape if you don't have that exit strategy. So you've got to go in with the mindset, I'm going to learn as much as I can about this topic so that I can eventually start a business on my own in this particular area. But you have to go in with that mindset. Otherwise, I think it's too easy, too comfortable. I think the world has changed. I think you're exactly right. And I think the days when you go work for one company your whole career, get the gold watch and, and retire, that's over. Right. So, most employees are very portable. They're taking their skills and they're going to different companies. They're jumping companies a lot more. It's not looked down upon anymore when you jump companies anymore. So that's less of a problem as it was when I was, just starting my career. People said, "Oh, you don't want to be jumping around. You want to look like that person that only stays with a job 2 years or whatever." But everybody's doing that now, and so it's not that big of a deal. So, yeah, I think you've got to go in with a mindset that you're going to be doing something different, or what is it that you want to do? What's your dream and what's your desire? How do you then get the experiences and skills to get there? Whether it's working for a small business or working for a corporation, where are you going to gain those skills best to be able to do ultimately what you want to do in your life?
Yeah. Because you want that sense of purpose. So you want, like, I think innately human nature is that we want to work and feel valued, right? So it's not like, hey, I'm trying to check out of my work altogether. And then I personally believe there's a lot to be learned with regards to how money works and the financial systems and things like that, because conventionally what they're teaching you, which is why they're setting you up for your 401k, automatic distribution, the second you get in the corporate world and things like that, is because they don't want you to have that money for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what, like, I talk about with my clients and things like that is finding alternative investment strategies that are going to kick you money now. And what is that investment vehicle? Because if you're buttoning yourself up, which is what I did in the corporate world, as soon as, like, I got downsized, which is why I ended up leaving. And it was by my choice, because they asked me to relocate and I refused to relocate. I wouldn't take the move, which turned out to be hilarious, because in typical corporate fashion, they would have bought my house and moved me to Dallas. And then 60 days later, they would have bought that house and moved me to Illinois. And because they didn't have their shit together. So I would have had to uproot my family twice. And but I initially turned down the very first move. And so then they put me on a timeline. I had like 16 months and then it was 16 months till D-Day, right? So I started buying rental properties immediately. And I was like, we need residual cash flow out of these rental properties. So I'm just going to start investing all of our money into different rent houses, right? And so I think that if you go in with the mindset that, hey, we're going to put together an 8 to 10 year plan, and this corporation is going to foot the bill for that next step, like, you can be very deliberate about your exit. Yeah. Because
100%. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think you touched on something that's really important. And I didn't do this. I learned this skill too far along in my life. I wish I had learned it early on, which is multiple income streams, right? That is a really important part of life. And nobody teaches you that, right? So they teach you, go get a job, you make your money. I was always, when I was in the military, I was 100% focused on the military job. When I was in corporate, I was 100% focused on the corporate job. And what I realized is that I'd never really built up a brand outside of who I was in the corporation. I never built up multiple income streams outside of who I was, other than my, investments and things like that. So I think that's a really big part of it. And that also gives you independence too it minimizes the risk of just being all in with a corporate job. And that is, having some sources of income that you can grow and that can, eventually maybe be your exit strategy out of the corporate world. But I think that's, multiple income strategies is probably one of the most important things I wish I had learned as a young person, and I'm glad I know it now.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's a really great point. Building your own personal brand, right? This is something that I did not do for the first 10 years in business at all. Like, I shied away from it. It wasn't my thing. I didn't want to be out there. I wasn't the face of our gym. I wasn't the face of anything. I didn't put my own stuff on social media. I was just real private. And I think that's been a bit detrimental because now I'm like playing catch up, right? I'm chasing it down over the last 2 years or so, trying to build this personal brand, which feels a little weird at this point, right? And so tell me a little bit more about that. When did you start building your personal brand, and how would you have kind of approached things differently? What have you learned?
Yeah, I think I started doing it when I left the one company and went to the other company. I sort of right at that time, I was realizing that probably my life in corporate was over. I just it was at the point where I was feeling like I got to get out of here. I was starting to get those uncomfortable feelings like there was way too much compromise. And that's ultimately what led me to leave that company and go to another one. But it was right around that time where I started, it's when I bought the URL to my name, right? And I encourage people to do that. Even if you're not going to work on a personal brand, buy the website to your name, right? Own that resource, own that real estate. So I did that. And at the time it was just a blogging, page. I would write articles once a week on that. And it really, I didn't really have a personal brand. I just had a website where I wrote things on. And, but then again, what I noticed is that it was resonating with a lot of people. The leadership articles I was writing, the things I was writing about, it resonated with a lot of people. And so the website kind of grew from there, from just being a place for, articles to, a lot more content, a lot more, we went started a podcast, wrote a couple of books, and it kind of grew from there. And now I have a brand. You go to my website, you're like, oh, this guy, he writes books, he runs a business. I mean, so you get the feel for who I am. I'm always a former submariner, so I have like a brand, if you will. But it is weird, like, because, again, in the military, even in corporate, you just did your job, right? You did your assignment. Who you were wasn't that important. You were just, you had a mission to do, and you had people and you achieved a mission, but you weren't really focused on who you are as a person. So it's always been a little weird. I think probably for me, at least, some of the social media, like Twitter for me, is natural because you can talk about, leadership topics and things like that. Instagram is more like, oh, hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing. And that's always been a little weird to me because, I'm not really big about, well, look at this great dinner I'm having, or look at who I'm hanging out with. Look at my fancy car. That's not who I drive a pickup truck. I run a manufacturing business. I'm pretty boring, So having that kind of thing, as a personal brand has always been a little difficult for me. It's not who I am necessarily. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though, because people want to see, like, one of the ways that I've heard it described though is because it's your social capital.
Yeah.
In the future, right? So we do, my wife and I do a decent amount of investing, and some of that is like third party investing in other businesses and real estate ventures, things like that. And so when you go to make these partnerships and you network and things like that, the first thing people do is go look you up, right? Yeah. And so they're like, what's this guy all about? And I think people are probably interested in you. And like, I know other great writers, and people I'm fascinated by it. I'm sure other people are fascinated by like what that looks like, the writing process. Do you write every morning? Do you try to hit 1,000 words a day? Like, how do you sharpen your skill set in that arena? Because most people just sit down and they're like, I don't know even where to start, right? Yeah. And so I could see there being a lot of different aspects of your brand that are attractive to people. And like, you run multiple businesses. Okay. How do you keep up with it all? Like, just the typical questions that people hear and see, like, you've got a family, you've got kids, all of it. Like, so your story is interesting because you're also a fairly new manufacturing firm that's been able to grab a foothold. So like, what are you doing in that space? So, yeah, I mean, I want to watch the Jon Rennie show.
Yeah, it's funny because I get made fun of a lot because I'm a pretty boring guy. I do get up at 4 a.m. That's my big thing. I get up at 4 a.m. and I write until 5. And 5, I work out until 6. And 6 to 7, I get ready for work. And 7, I go to the factory and run the business. And at night, I either write or I do interviews for podcasts for my podcast. So 2 nights a week, I usually do interviews for podcasts, and I write the rest of the time. So it's boring. I go to bed early and I get up early. So it's a really boring life. I do like bourbon. So that's my wild, my wild side is I enjoy a glass of bourbon, not every night, but a lot of nights. And I don't ever get drunk, but I just love the taste of bourbon. I just like it sitting by a fire and having a cigar. And that's my thing, so, but yeah, it's kind of a boring life. And, I think if you want to achieve difficult things, you can't, I don't know. You got to put the reps in. You got to work hard, and I think that's something that I've always had and I enjoy. I'll tell you, the thing is, with the writing process, the first book was sort of a test. Like I've never done this before. I'm going to try it to see what it was all about. And I hired a writing coach to help me along just to understand the whole process. And he was super helpful. And then learned the whole process of how to publish a book, self-publish a book. And, and so during the whole process, I met so many different authors. I listened. I try to pick their brains. Like, what's the best way to do this? How should I do it? And do I go with a traditional publisher? Do I self-publish? So I learned all this stuff. But the thing that I never expected, which was, I published the book, we market it, we sell it. I am selling so many of my first book that even today, so I'm debt free. I have a mortgage. So, but my mortgage payment for 3 years has been paid by my book sales, and that's the thing that I never expected that. I thought I would write a book, I'd have my mom and dad and my brother buy a copy, and then I would, that was it. So, so it was really weird to see that explode and become a really good passive source of income that I never had planned to be a passive source of income. So then it was a little bit like I kind of got hooked in. I'm like, all right, well, that was kind of cool. Let's see if I can do that again, So I think that, and not to say that everybody's a writer and not to say that everybody can find this source of income and be successful with it. But for me, at least, it worked. And it was it was really eye-opening. And like I said earlier, it's like, why didn't I think about this like 10 years ago or 15 years ago or 20 years ago, So, but I mean, I think now, I've got a lot of life experiences, so it's great I've got plenty of stories to tell now. So,
For sure. So when did you start JonRennie.com?
Let's see, probably 2000, let's see, what are we? Oh, I don't know, 16 maybe, 2016. Yeah.
6 years,
yeah.
6 years.
Yeah.
See,
yeah, no, maybe it's earlier maybe 2015 now, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. 7 years.
2014. Sorry. Yeah. 2014. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I think back.
Going on 8 years then. Okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think that's the most common misconception, because you talk about the simplicity of your life. I truly believe that is what actually delivers the results, is the consistency and simplicity of focus. And because I'm super simple too, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I do the same shit every single day. And I've got 4 kids. And so our days are chaos and circus. And, but at its root, what I do is very simple. I operate multiple businesses as well. And it seems like there's a lot going on, but underneath it all, it's very functional. But I also have to focus my time, right? What I think the misconception that people often suffer from, especially in the corporate world, or if you have that job right now and you're sitting at your desk and you don't know how to get out of it, is that it takes a lot of reps and a long time to create success, but it's not nearly as long as you think it is.
Oh yeah.
You being 7 years, most everybody I know that is wildly successful is at about that same point. they've only been buckled down, dialed in for somewhere about 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And like, that's when the hockey stick starts. And then by the time you hit 20 years and 23 years, 25 years, you're just on a different level at that point in time. But like, everybody quits in the first 60 months and gives up. And I see this in industry doesn't matter. Like gender doesn't matter. It's all the same. Like people can't stick with anything for a period of time. And so the fact that you've been doing it for 7 years is, I'm just like spot on. That's when he actually started putting in the work that led to the residual income that paid your mortgage, that led to the best-selling books. And now, I mean, the sky's the limit. You can branch off and do all kinds of shit with it. But
I've been doing keynotes now. So like the big thing is like, I get hired to go speak at a event, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, how much are you going to pay me to come speak? All right. I mean, I used to do that. I mean, and again, I did that for free for so long, and now it's like, oh, we get paid to do it. So I think that's kind of a neat thing too, is that, and I think you have to be willing to do things for free in the beginning and get those reps and get some practice and find your voice. I think it's part of it is like, who are you? You know, part of personal branding is what's your voice? Who are you and what do you stand for? And that took a little while to figure out. Like my tagline from the first book is that leadership is a people business. And that's one of the speeches I give is talking about, the importance of people in running our organizations. And I didn't write the book thinking that was going to be the tagline. That tagline came out of the book and that people talking about the book, and that became sort of part of my brand now. But I wouldn't have said, I didn't start with the tagline and build a brand. I built a brand, and then the tagline sort of came about. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So what do you see in the future for you?
Well, I think I love what I do. I love the manufacturing business. I would like it to be sort of a legacy thing where I could step away from it at some point, where I allow others to lead it.
What do you manufacture? Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
We make product for electric utilities. So a lot of the stuff that you see on power lines, distribution power, is the stuff that we manufacture. So, one of the things that's great about it is that everybody wants electricity and everybody needs electricity. So it doesn't matter how the electricity is generated. So we don't care if it's coal, wind, solar, you're going to need to take it and move it to someplace else. And so our products help do that. And we do it in a kind of an efficient way. And our products, are slightly better than the competition. We deliver it faster than the competition. And so we've built a niche for doing that. But it's a very, how do I say this? It's a very conservative, slow moving industry. So being a little innovative and fast, you can actually make a name for yourself in this business, because it's not the computer business, not the cell phone business. It's kind of a slow moving, very old business that we've sort of merged into. So
it's super relationship based too. My father-in-law was in IT. He was in IT, but he was in manufacturing for a bunch of different companies. And it's been interesting to learn about how that space kind of works. Do you have a sales team? Or are you the sales guy?
Reps. Yeah, I am the face of the sales. Yeah, sales and marketing. But we do have a sales reps around the country. So we got them in every state that represent our products. But mostly I'm the full-time sales. Yeah, and CEO and everything else. Clean the bathrooms if they need it.
Wearer of many hats. I totally understand that. So you have two sons that are grown, right? One's in the military?
Yeah, my youngest is in the Navy. My oldest is, he finished a master's in accounting, and he works for a large, accounting firm. And so both of them have left the house. Yeah. Well, they're here now for the holidays, but normally they're not here. So.
Well, that's fantastic that you guys are spending some family time together. Well, we've talked about a variety of topics today. If you were to leave us with one particular leadership tip, what do you think that would be? In today's climate, you've dealt with COVID. we've dealt with COVID in our businesses. Entrepreneurs have to be flexible, agile. Obviously the world's changing a bit. We've talked a little bit about that. What's your guidance for somebody? Let's actually talk about, what would your guidance be for someone that's trying to make the leap from a corporate job or a secure job into the entrepreneurial space from a leadership standpoint, because they know they have to run a team. You have to run a business. You have to be the leader ultimately.
Yeah, I think that the message would be that people bring our plans to life, right? So I think we tend to focus, especially as entrepreneurs, we think, well, I got to have the right business plan. I got to have the right logo. I've got to have the right website. I've got to get the right, I got to get the right marketing campaign or what have you. And I would say, at least in the, and I'm talking to people who aren't solo entrepreneurs, right? But if you're gonna build a team, your team is going to bring your vision to life. Your team is going to bring your plans to life. And so when it comes to people and bringing people onto your team, you have to recognize if you have 5 people working for you, every one of those people is extremely valuable to your team. It's almost like a Navy SEAL team, right? Everybody has to have a high level of capability, right? And has to be able to perform. What I like to do is try to find people that are experts in certain fields and are generalists in other fields. So when a certain part of the project comes up and I need a computer guy, I've got the computer guy. I need a financial guy, I've got the financial guy. But they also have a high level capability of just, running the business effectively. So finding that right team, every hire is critically important. Every hire represents 20% of your employees, right? It's not like, when you're in when I had 600 employees work for me, one employee being a problem isn't going to be a big deal. 5 employees, one employee is going to be a big deal. So that team you build is critically important. And they've got to have the right mindset. I would say this, I always look for the people that have faced difficulty in their lives and have overcome it. So I do hire a lot of veterans. I do believe that is a very, having that experience and being able to do hard things and not give up, that's the kind of mentality you want to find if you're going to build up a team in a small business. You want people that won't give up, that are that have been challenged, that have the scars, they have the stories, and they're able to carry on even when things get tough. That's the type of people you want on your team.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, Jon, where do people find you?
Yeah, it's at jonsrennie.com, and everything is there. Social media links, my books are there, my articles are there, links to the podcast, all there, jonsrennie.com. It doesn't matter how you spell Jon, you will get to my website. So that's another little tip for entrepreneurs. If your name is spelled unique or different, own the URL for all different spellings of your name, and that makes it easier. So jonsrennie.com. It is Jon, by the way. But if you actually put JOHN, you'll end up there as well. But it's jonsrennie.com. Awesome. Guys, go check him out. If you need a speaker for a keynote in the future, Jon will be your guy for leadership. Thanks for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it. It was great hearing your story and getting to know more insight about what you do. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.